Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so just gonna jump right into it. Hello. Welcome to the Tree Care and Basic Maintenance webinar. My name is Elora, and I'm the Marketing, Communications, and Outreach Coordinator here at Howard EcoWorks. Before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about EcoWorks. We are an environmental nonprofit organization based in Columbia, and we service Howard County and the Lower Baltimore region. We provide conservation and restoration for natural areas and communities while providing green industry training to our workforce development programs. We look a little bit like a landscaping company, but we focus on environmental projects such as tree plantings, rain gardens, and invasive plant removals. You can learn more about our services and our programs on our website and by staying in touch with us on our monthly newsletter. We do have some exciting events that are coming up that I want you to be aware of. We have our annual fundraiser in June. We're having a 10% off on native plants at our native plant nursery in Jessup. And we have a really fun premiere viewing called Kill Your Lawn that's coming up this May as well. So again, you can view that on our website or you can stay in touch with us on our newsletter. So before we jump into this, there is the chat section. And I know that you guys are going to have some questions. We will have time to answer questions at the end, but I'm going to ask you guys to type in the questions that you have, and then we will select ones to answer in as much time as we can. And if we don't get to your question, you can always email us, and we're going to put our email information in there as well, and we'll do our best to respond to you guys afterwards. So yes, use that chat and also introduce yourself. and now just to introduce our speaker, this is Andreas Ovale, and he is our Conservation and Restoration Director. He earned a degree in forestry engineering from the University of Chile, and he also holds an arborist certification from the International Society of Arboriculture. So everybody, welcome Andreas. And I hand it off to you now.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen now and we'll get started. Okay. Okay, so hi everyone, thanks for attending this webinar about tree care and basic maintenance that's been funded by the Chesapeake Bay Trust Urban Tree Grant that we got awarded. So this presentation is going to go through the whole pipeline from like thinking about having a tree until the tree is planted, and we need to perform some different type of care and maintenance to hopefully have a nice, successful, mature tree in the future. At the end, I will be happy to answer as many questions as you guys have. And if we don't have enough time for all the questions, so here will be my information. You can follow up with me like on a different day. So first, a little introduction about our organization, our mission and vision. So our mission is, EcoWorks mission is to empower community and diverse workforces to respect and restore our natural system for future generation. And our vision is, EcoWorks vision is for innovative solution, partnership, and skilled workforce supporting resilient communities. These are the content that we're going to be talking about today. So basically, I'm going to start with the benefit of tree, why it is important to plant trees, to care for trees, and why these trees are important for our ecosystem and our society. Number 3 is the one that we're going to spend most of the time discussing and talking about, like the basic maintenance and the basic care for the trees. And then also I will mention about like common problems that we normally see in trees in our communities, how to address those problems. And then also at the end, I will give you some good tips in order to be able to identify some signs and symptoms that they will be like telling us that the tree is asking for help, is struggling, or is suffering for any type of condition. Okay, so let's start with the benefit of trees. So there are different type of benefit that trees provide to our society, community, and our system. So first, I would like to talk about the ecological benefits. So there's so many that we can be talking about it, but I always try to refer a tree as the pillar of the ecosystem. So they're kind of our big umbrella protecting our land, our soil, and our wildlife as well. So we all know that they capture the CO2, they provide oxygen, they kind of capture like a runoff, they help to stabilize the soil, they help with the water cycle, water quality, erosion, they buffer the sound, they kind of even reduce the speed in some streets. So there are like a endless like a benefit that our tree can provide to the ecosystem, ecologically talking, and of course a lot of food and shelter for wildlife. So without tree, a lot of other species, organisms won't be possible. So taking care of our tree is taking care basically of hundreds and hundreds of other species and organisms that live in our ecosystem. Some other type of benefit that tree provide is social or communal. So it's been proven in several research that they improve mental health, they help to reduce stress, they definitely beautify our communities. They provide green spaces for recreation, and also they normally provide a nice, peaceful, and restful setting in our environment. And a very important one is the economic benefit. So it's been proven that uh, properties value they can increase up to 20% if you have like a nice, pretty, well-cared trees, and the bigger they are, the better that this value will go up. So 20%, it could be very significant if we can add some beautiful trees in good shape and healthy tree. Another thing when we talk about economic benefits, so they can reduce the bill for heating or also air conditioning. So some trees as a windbreaker will help you with the heating in winter, and also some shade trees will help you with the heating in winter and the air conditioning in summer. So it's very important to have trees in your property, and the economic benefit has been proven and it's great. We all want to get the most out of our property value. So then, before we get a tree, but we have the intention of having a tree, we need to start asking ourselves some few questions before we decide to move forward buying a tree or purchasing a tree. So if I do want a tree, either for me, for my family, or for my park, or whatever it is, I need to know what do I want a tree for? So what the main purpose, objective of having a tree? So I want this tree because I want to start some screening with the neighbor or with the highway or the street or the avenue. I want a windbreak around my house. I want to just to beautify my landscape around my property. Or I really want to provide some more eco services for the local native insect or wildlife. So those are the first questions I need to ask myself and trying to answer those before I start deciding what tree I might need. Then after I know why I want a tree and what I'm expecting from this tree, I need to decide where should I plant this tree. And when I start looking at the potential planting sites, I will need to do a little assessment about those sites in order to be able to pick the most appropriate species that will thrive in those conditions. And normally, the factor that you will account for making the decision of the type of tree or the species you need, it will be like what type of soil do I have over there? So it's like a heavy clay with poor drainage, or it's like a very sandy soil that have like a very good drainage. It's a place that gets full sun, or it's a place that normally is full shade. What the moisture is like a pretty wet or dry area. And the last factor I have listed over here is very, very important because just visiting property in Howard County, Montgomery County, Prince George County, a lot of the problem with tree is that they were planted where there was not enough room for that tree to develop in the long term. So one important thing is you really need to think in advance how big this tree is gonna get. So we're gonna get a shade tree, a oak tree. We know that tree is gonna get significantly big. So even though we're getting that tree in a 3-gallon pot or 5-gallon pot, that will be just very small and you can put it anywhere you want. But think that that tree in 20, 30 years, it will grow to be a big one. And you don't want to put it near the power line. You don't want to put it near some of these transformers that you have sometime in the houses or near the road. You don't want to put it so close to your house. So those are important things because 10, 15 years later, when we realize we're running out of room for that tree, it's not going to be easy, or probably it's not going to even be possible to relocate that tree. So make sure you have like enough space, enough room for that tree to stay there, hopefully like a 30, 40, 50 year or more. So trees, if they're well cared and they're in good shape and they're healthy, they can easily outlive us. And that will be our legacy for the next generation. So choosing the right tree for the right place is very important before we get our tree. So let's say that we already pick our species because we decided what we needed the tree for, and then we pick the right site. And then with those information, we are gonna start deciding the species we want. So we were gonna hopefully go to a local nursery that offer native trees, and then we're gonna buy it and bring it to our house. Sizes. It could be like from a bedroot tree, 1 gallon, 3 gallon, 5, 7, 15. They all come in containers. And then you can even go larger if you want to buy like a ball and burlap tree. So what the difference between those trees? So normally the bedroot tree, they can establish very quick into the ground. And then the ball and burlap, which are the largest trees. So normally the establishment period is normally longer, that could last up to 2 years. So you get like a ball and burlap tree planted in your property and you see not much growth happening the first 2 years. So that it is kind of normal because remember, these trees are field grown, and when they're dug up, a lot of root systems get cut, get pruned. So they have a shock process, and that's why delay the establishment period. But after that year and a half, 2 years, those trees should start growing with no problem. So when we have the site where we're gonna put the tree, so we wanna dig a hole that is twice wider than the root ball, but the depth it should be the same that the root ball, as you can see over here in the picture. You want to make sure that the tree is straight up. You want to make sure that the root flare, which is the base of the trunk, the base of the at the bottom, the base of the tree, that part that normally is a little bit wider, that should not be buried. That should kind of line up with the soil level, at the soil level. So then you can just use the same soil that you dug up in order to fill the hole. You need to tap a little bit because you don't want to compact it, but you want to make it firm because you want good soil contact with the root system. So you need to tap a little bit either with a tool or you can step a little bit on it in order to make sure that it's firmly attaching to the ground. You want to water right away, immediately, like a good sucking watering, and then you want to add a layer of mulch that normally should be like between 2 to 3 inches uh, the thickness, 2 to 3 thickness, uh, the layer of mulch. And then if the tree needs stake or some protection, you should add those. So remember, in our area, we suffer a lot from deer, so deer browsing, and also some deer robbing. So if you have deer in your property, I will highly suggest that you should be like protecting your trees. So mulching. So mulching is very important. So why do we mulch? There are a lot of good reasons for adding mulch to our trees. So one of the reasons are they protect the root from like the very extreme temperature. So we're talking about like a high temperature over 90s that we get in summertime, and also like a freezing temperature we get in July, August, and sorry, January, February, and winter time. As the mulch starts to break down due to the weather element, so they will slowly start releasing some nutrient which will be beneficial and will start feeding our tree and will encourage a good growth. Also, the mulch will suppress the weed. So there normally a lot of weed and grass that will start growing right at the base. So that layer mulch will help keeping this weed away. Also, the mulch will help with the moisture in the soil. So we'll keep the moisture longer, which it will definitely help our tree. It will improve the structure of the soil. And the last one is super important because unfortunately, like a big percentage of declining trees are due to human problems. And those human problems normally are these mower and trimmers. So if you don't have this kind of buffer layer of mulch around the base of the tree, and this tree is in the middle of the lawn, unfortunately, that's keeping company, and this worker will mow over and will trim over. If the root system and the bark at the base get hit by the mower and or by the trimmer, probably won't be a problem for 1, 2, or 3 times, but if this is something that happens continuously every single time they come, and this is for a year, so more likely that tree is gonna develop some big problem at the base, some big damage, some open cavity, and that will develop some decay and will reduce the lifespan of the tree until probably we end up losing this tree. So it's very important to add this layer of mulch that will benefit the tree to kind of make sure we have a successful mature tree. So this is an example of how volcano mulch are in our area. So it might look pretty in a picture, this kind of big mulch volcano, but unfortunately, this is a very bad practice. We don't need to cover the trunk or the base of the tree or the bark of the tree with mulch. Remember, the mulch is a good layer that will protect our root system. We don't need to protect our trunk with mulch. So if we put mulch like a feet or 2 feet up in the trunk of the tree, what's gonna happen? So that's gonna keep the moisture over there. So that means with the high temperature that's gonna develop some fungal right along the bark and will start developing some decay and might compromise the life of the tree. So you don't want to pile any mulch up in the trunk of the tree. So if you see like the picture on the far right, so that's the good way you should be mulching. So like a saucer. So it will be a little bit thicker at the farther end, but right around the root flare, you should leave like a clean or clear buffer of 2 to 3 inches. So the mulch, it is not touching the bark or the trunk of the tree. So we have, I mean, the wider you go, the better. So at the beginning, so normally tree come in a root ball that's just 1 foot to 2 or 3 feet. So you want to cover that. But when we're dealing with bigger trees, so the bigger, the wider you go, the better it is. And normally, sometimes trees, if you compare canopy with root system, it's a little bit like a mirror effect. So you see like how big and wide our canopy is, more likely that's how big and wide our root system are underground is. So you can protect and help this root system, the whole area, that's good too. Some good option for mulching in a cheap way. So you can get some wood chips. So there is an app that's called Chip Drop that you can sign up and they will deliver like a truckload of wood chip for free. We're talking about between 15 yards to 30 yards that you can get delivered at your property for free. So I've been using that in the last 7, 8 years and it's working great. And beside my physical work that I do, I don't get to pay anything for it. So it's a great deal. And the other thing is you get a lot of leaf in fall. Also, you can use the dry leaf from fall in order to mulch around trees. So that's another good way to mulch. Check your mulch annually. Some mulch they break down very easily and fast. That depends what kind of mulch we're getting. But some other they take a little bit longer. So for those that take a little bit longer, you don't need to be mulching every year. Sometimes you need to mulch every other year. But the main part of it here is like a volcano mulch. They are not good. It's a bad practice, and that definitely hurt our trees. So watering. When we're talking about watering our trees, there's no like a magic approach or a secret over here. So definitely we want to keep an eye on our tree. So observation is a key. We need to really get familiar with our tree. We need to look at them. We need to visit them as often as we can. So, and that is for the moisture as well. So we want to go to our tree and check the soil at the base and see if the soil is dry or it's wet. And so every time we go there and we're going to check, hopefully weekly, the moisture level around our tree, we want to water anytime that we'll find out that the soil is dry. How you can uh, see if it's dry or wet, so you can just use a little stick or like a screwdriver and just stick it in the ground at about 6 inches and see how dry or how wet the soil is. And then you just need to water as needed. And normally you want to water within the drip line of the canopy. Mhm. Pruning. So pruning is one of the most important tree maintenance procedure for trees. And pruning, there's several type of pruning. And why are we pruning? So there are many reasons why we will need to prune trees. And for example, I listed some of the reasons, like a very common reason. A lot of people don't want the tree to get big, but unfortunately, trees they do get big. But we can control a little bit the side of the tree, but we cannot turn it into a bonsai or a tree that's not going to grow more than 3 feet or 5 feet or whatever we want. So we need to know that. So trees might have a structural problem. So when we're talking about a structural problem, like branches that they don't have a good angle, or branches that they're touching each other, or branches that they're not going in the right direction. So many problem of branches that they go up and down. So ideally, we want to have branches with a good angle that's supposed to be between 45 to 60 degrees angle. And so that means slightly up in diagonal with a consistent direction. We don't want branches that will go like to the center of the tree. We don't want branches that they're water sprout that will go straight up, that will be bypassing all the other branches. And we don't want branches that are leaning on each other or touching other. So, and those are different reasons, structural problems or undesirable branches that would need to be removed. Other reason is like you want to remove any branch that dead, it's broken, diseased, or infested. You want to prune for safety. If you see like some limb might be having some issue, it might break easily, might be close to property or to area where kids play. So probably you want to remove the branch for clearance. So sidewalk, driveway, road. So you want people to be able to walk easily, car to drive easily and not hitting branches. You also want to improve the airflow or air circulation within the tree. So this is one of the most important principles to keep your trees healthy. So we want to encourage a good airflow within the canopy. That's a key principle for keeping our trees healthy. Because if we have a tree that too dry, it have too many branches, so that defeat the good air circulation. And that means there will be a lot of branches like a kind of touching each other or leaning on each other, and all those parts that are kind of rubbing each other will keep the moisture too long. And if that happens during summer days where we get 90 degrees or more, so that combination between holding the moisture too long and having very high temperature, definitely it can lead some decay and some fungus development. You want to remove any sucker that normally come from the base of the tree or water sprout. So so there's so many reasons to prune your tree and so many type of pruning approach as well. But you do want to do your pruning at the early stage of the tree because this is another common problem we see. So we sometimes don't pay much attention to our tree, and then when we realize the problem, it is too late, or the branches are too big. So if we want to help our tree, we need to try to approach this problem as early as we can. So we're talking hopefully in the first 5 years of the tree after we plant it. If we are able to keep up with those maintenance in the first 5 years, we should have a beautiful, healthy, mature tree in the future that's not going to give us much problem in terms of the maintenance or care. So when to prune? Basically, you can prune all year round, but we need to know what happened with the tree when we prune a branch. So first of all, we don't want to remove more than 25% of the foliage. So that should be your max, your cap. So if you think that your tree need more pruning than 25%, probably you want to plan that out in several seasons. So you remove something this year and something else next year. But you don't want to go more than 25% a one growing season. And the other thing, every time we remove a branch, we made a cut. Thus, that cut is an open wound for the tree. So the bigger that cut it is, or the bigger that branch it is, so the open wound or that open cut, it will be bigger. And it will take longer for the tree to seal and compartmentalize that open wound. So that's why it is not recommended to prune branches that are more than between 4 to 5 inches diameter, because if their diameter is more than that means the tree will take several years to close that wound. And if that wound is open for several years, it's more likely that some decay will start developing in that wound. So the smaller the, the faster that the tree will be able to seal and compartmentalize that cut, and then that will be totally closed and no decay and no fungal will develop over there. So you can prune any time of the year, minor pruning, but if it's more intense pruning, probably you want to do it like in winter or late winter. It's basically because also when we're removing the branch, we're removing some foliage, and the foliage is the part of the tree that produces a lot of energy through the photosynthesis process. So we need to understand that in removing a huge branch during like a very active season, we will removing a lot of tissue, a lot of material that produce energy for the tree. So if it's kind of an intense pruning, probably you want to do it when the tree is a little dormant, like in winter time. But if it's just minor pruning, you can do it any time of the year. And actually, it could be good to do it during the active growing season, so that wound tissue will start closing faster because the tree is growing fast at that moment. So we're talking in the spring. So where to make the cut? That's an important part. So the picture we have on the right, this is a branch that was pruned, and it took basically like just kind of 2 years, 2 years and a half to close. So this is fully closed. So the cut work was done at the right place, and the tree had no problem to close that wound, and the tree is gonna keep growing pretty healthy. So the important thing about where you make the cut, so you should not flush the cut. So you should not like line up the cut with the trunk. So every branch, every attachment, branch attachment, it has something that's called like the branch collar or the collar or the ring, the reach, sorry, the branch reach or the branch collar. So it's the same that kind of the root flare. So it's kind of the base of the branch that's a little bit wider, so it's a little bumpy area that is at the attachment point. In some species, it's very easy to kind of identify, see the branch color. I know there is a little bit more tricky, but you want to cut the branch right off the ridge of branch color, because that ridge or branch collar is where you have all the cells that will divide, multiply, and will seal. So if you cut the branch collar, you will be creating like a bigger damage to the tree, and the tree will struggle sealing, compartmentalizing that cut, and will have like a different reaction. More likely, you will get a lot of new sprouts, like a kind of sucker little limb and branches, which is not what we want. We don't want a branch anymore there, and we want the tree to be able to seal it as fast as possible and then stay healthy. So that is very important. Sometimes just like a pinky, like a quarter of an inch off from the attachment is like a good, safer place to perform that cut. And again, you want to do this as early as possible. So you want to identify all these problems as early when the tree is still young, because if you don't do it at that stage, then those branches will get bigger, and it's not gonna be as simple as like a DIY project. So you probably will need to call a tree company, and that might end up costing you some money. So these are basic tools for pruning. uh, just the hand pruner that will be perfect for small branches up to like a 3/4 of an inch. Then the lobber or lobbing shears, which are my favorite for bigger branches, sometimes up to 2 inches. And then for bigger, you can use just a pruning saw. I do not want to encourage anyone to grab a chainsaw or to jump into ladders and get high up in the tree and rope and get super creative and put chair on top of your pickup truck. There's some pole saw that's they can be pretty long to kind of prune branches that they're a little bit higher up in the tree. But I I do not want anyone like to start climbing trees or using rope or chainsaw. But if you're trained doing that, of course, that will be totally fine. So I was saying about timing. So when we're pruning branches, timing is definitely important. So one of the first approach when we want to start doing some pruning, we want to do some cleaning pruning. So you first want to start removing everything that's dead, broken, sick, and infested. So if we remove the branch right away when we see or identify a problem in that branch, probably we will see the picture on the right. That's very light, kind of yellowish color. So that's a healthy tissue, no problem. So that should be healed in no time, like a 1 season or a season and a half, and it will be perfect. But if we have a dead branch and we do not remove it on time, that means that dead branch is being in the tree for 2, 3, or more seasons. What happened? So when we cut it, not on time right away, and we let it stand over there for multiple years, definitely that dead branch is gonna develop some decay, and that decay is slowly it's gonna start making its way to the healthy part of the tree and bringing some decay to the main trunk of the tree, which it will reduce the lifespan of that tree. So that tree definitely is going to last way less year than it should be. So you can clearly see that the tissue over here is totally dead. It's way darker color. And in the middle, in that picture, you can see there is totally rotten and some decay, and there is actually a little hole, a little cavity. So this is kind of a snowball. So you just let the dead branch should be there, and then slowly this is going to start breaking up. Fungus will start breaking up the wood. Then insect will sense that and will start moving in, and then other insect will start laying egg over there, and then some woodpecker will come as well. So then it just gets worse and worse. So we want to remove the branches as soon as we identify problems. So hopefully we get rid of the problem before it starts spreading into the other part of the tree. Another thing that I forgot to mention in the previous slide, that every time you're going to remove a branch, you want to remove the branch from the attachment point. So you don't want to just randomly make a cut in the middle because that's the height I want, because that's kind of line up with my roof or with my window or whatever else is around that tree. So if we want to remove a branch, we need to follow that branch to the mother branch or to the trunk or whatever other like a lateral branches that you see, so you can bring it back to an attachment or union point. So do not cut between not, basically. So always any branch that you decide to remove, it should be cut at the attachment point and a little bit off from the collar, branch collar or the ridge. So elevation pruning. So that's a basic pruning that normally done in the right of way in the tree planting for clearance for pedestrian and cars. So basically, you're removing the bottom branches in order to have like a open clearance for pedestrian or car. So crown reduction pruning is to kind of bring the crown a little bit smaller, bring the tree a little bit down. And again, you need to select some branches, especially those branches that they are at the top of the canopy, and then start removing them from the attachment point. So this diagram is very clear about like how the tree was before on the left, and then the branches that they were selected to be pruned. They highlight exactly over here in the circle that you should remove every branch from the attachment point, and then you'll see the result after that the tree crown is significantly smaller than how it used to be before this crown reduction pruning. By you keeping the natural structural integrity of the tree, so the natural form. This is a very bad crown reduction pruning. Actually, this shouldn't be even called crown reduction pruning. So this is topic, and we see it everywhere, especially around power line. So Pepco or BGE companies normally they do a lot of this. Sometimes they don't have other option because they just need to get those branches out of the way from getting too close to the wire. So basically, they just kind of chop everything in a straight line. So without even thinking about like the important principle about pruning, which will be removing from the attachment point. So this is a very bad practice that we see all over, and unfortunately, like this will lead to like a dead tree. So it's very unlikely that tree will deal well with this kind of pruning. Some shrub like might tolerate a little bit like this kind of shaping or topping practices, but for most of our trees and shade trees, they're not gonna do well, and more likely they're gonna die very few years after these practices. Crown thinning pruning. So this is related to like the air circulation I was talking before. So sometimes the tree might develop too many branches, and that will get too crowded that canopy. So you have to start selecting some of the branches that need to be removed so you can encourage a better air circulation within the canopy. So that means when we get a soaking rain in summertime, the tree will dry up quickly, pretty fast after the rain events, and won't hold the moisture too long with those high temperatures leading to problems. So you need to identify branches that they're rubbing each other, touching each other, or in weird direction, or they're broken. So you need to encourage like a good spacing between the branches, and that definitely is gonna help significantly the the health of the tree, and also encourage some more light penetration and like the interior foliage development, that it's very important as well. So you don't want to remove all the interior branches. Those are very important as well. So now we're talking about some common problem we see in our trees in our community. So these are suckers. So you will see a lot of these in cherry trees. These are some red bud. So suckers, first, they are a sign of some kind of a stress that the tree is having. So it's important to make sure that that tree is good. So you have like a proper watering when it needed, proper space, proper mulching. Those suckers, they should be removed. All the suckers should be removed. Those are just gonna compete with our main trunk, and they're gonna limit the space for the trunk development. So you do need to remove the sucker as soon as you can. The other is like a codominant stem or multi-stem, which those sucker could become codominant stem or multi-stem. So for most of our medium-sized trees and shade trees, oak, hickories, and others, you want like a single stem tree. If you have like a two stem, two trunk, which will be a codominant stem, or you have more than two, like a multi-stem, so that means those strong, they're going to run out of room and they're going to start eventually touching, and that will lead to some structural problem and then some decay. There's some exception of species that normally they grow in a form of multi-stem. So river birch is a common example of a multi-stem tree in the riverbank. Serviceberry, cream myrtle, sweetback magnolia, and some shrub. But for most of our native trees, large trees, you want one trunk, and you want to remove the other one in an early state as well. Because this is what happens if we don't remove that codominant stem on time. So in the picture on the left, so let's think that this tree, like 5 years ago, it was not touching over here at the bottom, trunk to trunk. So it was open. But this will be closing more and more and more. And each year that they're touching and they're closing, that means that trunk does not have room to keep growing in diameter in that section where it's touching each other. So that means the cell that they produce every growing season, they get squished and they die. So what's happening is start forming like a what's called bark inclusion. That's the technical term. But in other words, it means that it will start developing like a dead tissue pocket. Dead tissue normally is loose tissue. So there will be a loose tissue pocket that will develop over here and will get bigger, bigger, and bigger as the tree keep growing season after season. And that is gonna lead to what we see on the picture on your right. So eventually that tree will split because there's no firm sound good that they're holding the tree in the middle. So you just lose tissue. So you want to address that in the early days. Some other common problem we have in our area, so deer robbing. So you have a tree that less than 4 inches diameter, the trunk, and you have deers in your area, you do want to protect that trunk with a trunk protector. So the deer, normally male deer, in fall is when most of the deer robbing happen, fall and winter. So these are some pictures of some deer robbing that can easily like knock down a tree or create like a big injury, like a big wound that will easily can kill the tree. This is like a very advanced decay after some deer robbing, so it's hard for this tree to make it back and last all the year that we expect. We mentioned the weed whacker and trimmers. So this been years of trimmer hitting the base of the tree. So that will make it through the cambium and it will probably compromise the life of the tree. Another thing, this, this is hard to believe and understand because we put money, effort in order to protect the trees as much as possible and put water back, put the stake, to put some support, to put so much stuff over there, and then we just forget about that. And then what's supposed to help in the first 2 3 years, then it start become like a problem and it start killing the tree in the year 4 5 6. So this is a problem all over the places, like every county, every community. So no one is enforcing this. So it's sad to see that gator bag, I just kind of microplastic spread all over because no one ever remove it after they start breaking. This kind of a stake and wire and rubber thing, they're getting swallowed by the trees. So it's very sad. So these are kind of some signs and symptoms, so that give you an idea if your tree is asking for help. So we see some foliage decoloration, that's a sign of stress of the tree. It could be like a nutrient deficiency. It could be like a moisture. It could be many reasons. Dropping leaf early in the season. Also, that's a sign of stress of the tree. Remember the species though. So, for example, cherry tree, they normally drop early. So they drop like a late summer. But other species normally they start dropping the leaf more into fall. So you just need to get familiar with the species as well. So the fall color, which we love in our area, fall color is amazing. But sometimes if the fall color is showing in summer too early, that also is a sign that the tree is having some kind of stress. Like a very thin crown, so it looks very spare, like there's not much green, there's some bare branches. That's a sign of stress or problem. Dieback, fungus, conch, the fruiting body, mushrooms, insect, and good pickers. So these are like a easy sign and symptom that you can observe, identify in the tree, and then start thinking that that tree and needs some support and needs some help. Well, so this will be the end of the presentation. I hope this was helpful information for you to take care of your own trees or your community tree or your family trees. And we all doing our part in order to have a beautiful tree canopy in our communities. So thank you. So now I'll pass it back to Ilura so we can see if we have some questions.
Okay, and just to remind everybody, if you do have any questions, please type it in the chat. And thank you, Andreas, for that wonderful presentation. Starting up, I do have a question from Pat asking, if the bark splits, can you do anything early to help it heal?
If the bark is split, are we talking about like the trunk split? If it's really the trunk split, we're talking about more than just a bark split. So we're talking about a crack. That sometimes those cracks happening with extreme temperature and when there had not much protection that tree, and there's not much to do about that. If we're talking about that, like a crack in the trunk, if it's just the bark, if it's just the bark, so that's a minor problem, and the tree should be back. You do not want loose tissue in your tree. So when we're talking about the bark, and you see a lot of loose, you want to clean it up. You want to remove any loose tissue because all the loose tissue normally is dead tissue, and that dead tissue normally provides shelter for insects, and that start bringing some decay into our tree. So you want to clean any loose tissue because we want to keep it dry and with that air circulation. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I think that what probably what he was trying to say.
Alrighty. Yes, and it was on trunks, so I think you covered that question. We have another question in the comments asking from Teresa. Can you say more about how to save volcano mulch trees and how we non-arborists determine if we need professional help when attempting to save a volcano mulch tree?
Well, so volcano moisture, the volcano have been happening recently. So let's say it's been like a season or two doing some volcano moisture will be as easily as kind of rake it back. And then like keep like this buffer around the base totally clean and clear that the mulch is not touching it. So it could be as simple as that. If the mulch volcano has been happening for a while, you're gonna run in situation that you will start raking the mulch away and you will run into roots right away. So you can prune those little roots and then bring it a little bit down and then just keep it clear and stop mulching it from now on.
Okay, we have another question. Um, What if you have a bowl at the joint of a large branch? Historically, I've heard of cement, which seems terrible. Would plain sand be an alternative?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I think I missed the very beginning of the question.
Sorry. What if you have a bowl at the joint of a large branch? Historically, I've heard cement, which seems terrible. Would plain sand be an alternative?
Ball? You mean a ball like a cavity? Are we talking about filling like a cavity with cement?
I'm
What?
I'm assuming so.
Yeah, so it's been proven in
Or
several research that filling any wound, any cavity, it won't help the tree. So you see like a big cavity, like a big hole in your trees, and you're thinking that you want to kind of fill it up, patch it up, and cover it to help the tree. So that's not good. So I've been proven that doesn't help the tree at all. So the only thing that I normally recommend for those cases, you just want to keep it dry and clean because those cavities will keep collecting water and debris and loose tissue. So you want to remove the loose tissue and keep it dry. You're not gonna solve the main problem of the hole, but you're gonna extend the life of the tree doing that because you will this accelerate the decay that's happening in that specific point. You want to slow down that decay basically. So do not do any filling, not even those foam products.
yes, I hope that answered your question. I know that there was follow-up questions from our iPhone user here. So not a wound, but a bowl shape at the joint of large branches to a trunk. So I think that covered it, right? Like the same advice for something like that. Okay. We have another question from Teresa as well. More on the volcano mulch removal. After removing a volcano mulch from a tree trunk base that has been there a long time, and if the bark is decayed, should it be treated with something or will it heal on its own?
Well, that depends like how big that decay is, but it should start develop. You first, if you see a little bit of decay, so a little like a loose bark, let's say that was starting to decay, you can just clean it up. If it's loose, you can just clean it up, and then the tree will start healing that part.
Any other questions? I know we have about 2 more minutes, so that's probably enough time. Oh, bark is totally gone, is what Teresa is saying. The bark is gone.
Bark is totally gone. All around the circumference, I guess.
Bare
And
smooth.
does it have root?
Does it have any? We're saying.
Because the thing is, we don't want that root to be so high up in the surface because that's gonna start like branching out too high, and then it will start messing up with other things. So we want the roots like from the ground and under. Like we don't want the roots growing above the soil level.
Yes. So we're at 12:59 right now. I'm going to go ahead and take the time to put in our email. So if you guys have any additional questions, please send us an email and we will get back to you. And this is being recorded, so we will upload that. We're going to send you guys an email and we're going to upload it under our socials. And that way you guys can visit this information again in a later date. Um, before this ends, uh, Andreas, you have any final words?
And well, I will let you remind everyone that observation is a key more than every technical word, any book. you really need to get to know your trees well. So get familiar with your trees, look at your trees, visit your trees, look at their canopy, look at the branches, look at the base, look at the trunk, look at the base, and get familiar. So the more observation you do of your tree, the easier that you will identify potential problem that you can tackle at an early stage and won't cost you money, and those trees will last for a long time.
Great. All right. Well, I believe that this concludes our webinar, and I want to thank everybody who came out. And I hope that you all got to learn some valuable information. And thank you so much, Andreas, for taking the time to educate the public on this. And hopefully you can all see the email link that I've sent in. You can also see that on our website at howreadygoworks.org. And that concludes. Everybody have a nice day.
Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.